Right now, in a nation operating probably the most sophisticated digital surveillance state in human history, an underground network is successfully exporting missionaries to over 100 other countries.
Yeah, it's wild to think about.
Right, just think about that for a second. We're talking about believers who, they can't even legally post a Bible verse online.
Exactly.
Yet they're systematically sending people across international borders to spread the very message that their government is, well, actively trying to suppress. Today, we're looking at how that is even physically possible.
It completely flips our standard understanding of how global influence works. I mean, we tend to think you need institutional power.
Right, like big buildings and...
Yeah, massive funding, to make a global impact. What we're seeing in the actual data tells a totally different story about pressure and resilience.
And that is exactly what we are dissecting today. So, welcome to this Missions Connect deep dive. On the Missions Connect app, which is a Bible-based and missions-focused devotional and prayer app, and a ministry of assisting2obey.com, our entire focus is on the most unreached and, the most strategic prayer topics in cross-cultural missions.
Yeah, and the goal of today's deep dive is really to serve as a tool. We want to prepare your mind and your heart for the content of the following week.
Right.
So this is your weekly preview for the Missions Connect Week of Prayer. Specifically, we're looking at week 29, which runs from July 13th through the 19th, 2026.
And we are really tracing a map of pressure today. Like, we're looking at 3 communities experiencing entirely different types of barriers. In India, we're looking at this ancient decentralized social wall. In China, we're looking at a modern hyper-centralized technological wall.
Right, the exact opposite.
Exactly. And then in Haiti, we're looking at the total collapse of the walls that are actually supposed to keep a society safe.
Well, to ground this entire journey, we really have to look at the theological conviction driving it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The weekly preview points directly to Psalm 22, verse 27, which says, "All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations will bow down before him."
I love that verse.
It's powerful. And it means that whether we are looking at, an unreached social elite, or a heavily monitored underground network, or a nation in the grip of violent gangs, we aren't just observing geopolitical tragedies.
No, not at all.
We're observing spaces that ultimately belong to God.
Yeah.
We do not pray into silence.
So true. So let's start with that first barrier, the ancient social wall in India. We are looking at the Brahmin, and the numbers provided by the Joshua Project are, frankly, they're staggering.
Yeah, they really are.
There are 60 million Brahmin in India, and they occupy the absolute highest position in the ancient Hindu caste hierarchy. I mean, they are the traditional priests, the scholars, the custodians of the sacred texts.
Right.
Yet fewer than 1 in 1,000, that's less than 0.1%, identify as Christian.
Yeah, and because of that, they are classified as a mega frontier people group.
Wow. Mega frontier.
Yes, and to put that in perspective for you, a mega frontier designation doesn't just mean a group is hard to reach. It means there are 0 confirmed self-sustaining movements to Christ among them in recorded missions history.
0?
0. There is no reproductive spiritual seed taking hold there.
So here's my question. The Brahmin are the ultimate cultural gatekeepers, right? In a society of 1.4 billion people, they're the tech leaders, the academics, the politicians.
Oh, absolutely. Highly educated.
Right. So if they are so highly educated and internationally connected, why is there such a rigid, invisible wall keeping the gospel out? I mean, usually education and global connectivity lead to like a porous exchange of ideas.
You really have to separate the exchange of intellectual ideas from the reality of social identity.
Okay, unpack that.
So, for a Brahmin, engaging with Christian philosophy intellectually might be perfectly acceptable. They might read the texts, debate them.
Sure.
But actually converting, that is an entirely different mechanism. In the West, we view conversion as a private, individual choice of belief. But in the caste system, conversion is viewed as the total abandonment of your community.
It's social suicide.
Exactly. It is social suicide.
Meaning they aren't just changing what they do on a Sunday morning.
Precisely. They are severing their ancestral duties. And there is a crucial sociological dynamic here that we have to define just to understand the stigma.
Okay.
Historically, the vast majority of Indian Christians have come from what are known as Dalit, or lower caste backgrounds.
So let's clarify that term for the listener real quick. The Dalits are the communities historically marginalized by the caste system, right? Often referred to in the past as untouchables.
Right, exactly.
Meaning they exist outside the traditional 4-tier caste structure completely.
Yes. For centuries, Dalits have been relegated to the most grueling, marginalized roles in society. So when a Brahmin, who sits at the absolute pinnacle of ritual purity and social status, looks at Christianity, they do not just see a different theology.
Right.
They see a Dalit religion. So in their cultural framework, converting doesn't mean finding a new path to God.
What does it mean?
It means actively choosing to step down to the absolute bottom of the social ladder.
Wow. It's like pulling the foundational Jenga block out of your existence.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, your family cuts you off, your marriage prospects vanish, your business networks dissolve, you inherit thousands of years of social capital, and, well, conversion basically demands you burn it all to the ground.
It does. And that explains why outside gospel workers can't just walk in and start a movement. The barrier isn't a lack of biblical information.
Right, they have the
The
information.
barrier is an impenetrable sociological fortress. And this is why they're the strategic focus for prayer. A breakthrough among the 60 million Brahmin would fundamentally alter the spiritual landscape of India.
Because if the gatekeepers open the gates...
Exactly. It dismantles that stigma.
Yeah.
It opens up relational and societal networks that no foreign worker, and certainly no lower caste believer, can currently access without facing severe prejudice.
Man, that is so strategic. So in India, the barrier is thousands of years of decentralized social tradition keeping the gospel out.
Yes.
But what happens when the barrier is an ancient tradition, but a modern, hyper-centralized, technologically advanced state trying to trap the gospel that is already inside?
That brings us to our second focus, China.
Right, and the contrast is just sharp.
It really is.
Mhm.
I mean, the growth of the Chinese church over the last several decades has been unprecedented. We are looking at an estimated 96 million Christians today.
96 million.
But the pressure they are facing now in 2026 is arguably the most sophisticated form of state suppression in history.
Yeah, according to the Weekly Preview, China is ranked number 17 on the Open Doors 2026 World Watch list,
With a persecution score of 79 out of 100.
which is incredibly high. And the state is heavily enforcing this Sinicization policy. Like, they are actively demanding that churches align their theology and leadership structures with Communist Party ideology.
It's not enough to just be quiet.
Exactly. This isn't just about shutting the doors. It's about rewriting the doctrine completely.
And they're using the digital infrastructure to do it. You see this with the online code of conduct for religious professionals that rolled out in September 2025.
I read about that. It's intense.
It effectively criminalized unauthorized online religious content. So sermons, sharing scripture, even organizing small prayer groups over messaging apps, it is all scrubbed by algorithms and monitored by the state.
Which escalated quickly into physical force because just a month later, in October 2025, there were these massive coordinated raids on the Zion Church network.
Right, the 10.9 church persecution.
Yeah, the believers refer to it as the 10.9 church persecution. Around 30 pastors and leaders were detained or simply disappeared. And across this reporting period, over 1,000 churches or Christian properties were attacked or forcibly closed.
It's devastating. So when you look at that level of systemic high-tech suppression, how do you make sense of the fact that they're simultaneously exporting missionaries across the globe?
Right. That is exactly the paradox we started the show with. I think of Romans 1, verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes.
Amen.
But practically, like logistically speaking, how does a church operating under digital surveillance physically recruit, train, fund, and deploy a missionary to another country?
Well, they do it by completely abandoning the Western model of mission.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they don't have mission boards with public websites. They don't wear badges that say missionary. Because the state has stripped away their ability to be a bulky institutional church, they have been forced to become hypermobile and completely decentralized.
So they operate bivocationally.
Yes, meaning they travel as legitimate students, engineers, or business owners.
Ah, I see.
The state thinks it is crushing the church, but what it's actually doing is forcing believers to integrate their faith flawlessly into their everyday professional lives just to survive.
Wow.
By the time a Chinese believer gets a visa to work in the Middle East or Africa, they've already spent years learning how to build secret networks, how to share their faith without triggering surveillance, and how to operate under the constant threat of imprisonment.
They are forged in the fire of persecution. So when they land in a hostile foreign country, they aren't intimidated at all.
Not at all.
They already know the playbook for surviving an oppressive regime. The surveillance state accidentally built the most resilient undercover missionary force on the planet.
Accidents in human eyes, right.
Right. The state tried to build a containment wall, but it acted like a pressure cooker that just blew the gospel out across 100 nations.
That is the exact mechanism. They are no longer just receiving the gospel, they're exporting it because their spiritual DNA has been fundamentally altered by the pressure.
Man, that is so powerful. And it really transitions us perfectly to the third reality mapped out in the weekly preview.
Yeah, let's talk about Haiti.
Because if India represents social control and China represents authoritarian state control, Haiti represents the absolute terror of state collapse. We are looking at a society operating in a total vacuum of authority.
And the human toll there it's just difficult to even comprehend. Haiti ranks 5th on the IRC emergency watch list for 2026.
The statistics are chilling. We're talking about 6.4 million Haitians in desperate need of humanitarian aid.
And 2.8 million of them are children.
It breaks your heart. Armed gangs now control an estimated 90% of the capital, Port-au-Prince. Over 1.45 million people are internally displaced.
And to make matters even worse, over 270,000 migrants were forcibly returned to Haiti in 2025.
They are being dropped back into a literal war zone.
Exactly. Often separated from their families by gang-controlled highways. And the international response is nearly non-existent at this point.
Right. The funding is abysmal.
The humanitarian funding is currently sitting at only 3.4% of what is actually required to address the crisis.
And here's the stat from the weekly preview that just stopped me in my tracks. The UN reported a 700% rise in child gang recruitment in early 2025.
700%.
Because that isn't just a number, you know. That means a 12-year-old kid is being handed an assault rifle because he is starving, and the local gang is the only entity offering a meal and protection.
Yeah, and when international agencies and heavily funded NGOs are forced to evacuate because the security situation is completely untenable, you have to ask, who is left to hold the fabric of society together?
Wait, let's explore that. Because if the UN can't operate safely and gangs control 90% of the city, how is a local church pastor surviving?
That's the question.
Why wouldn't a gang just instantly target a church trying to distribute food? Like, how are they practically functioning without getting killed?
Well, the hard truth is they do get targeted.
They do.
Pastors have been killed. Church buildings have been burned to the ground. There is no magic shield protecting them.
Right.
But the mechanism that allows them to stay when NGOs flee is local legitimacy. You see, an NGO is an external organization. The local church is the community itself.
Oh, that makes sense.
The pastor grew up in that neighborhood. He knows the gang members. He might have even baptized some of their mothers.
I see. So the church operates as the last remaining load-bearing pillar in a collapsing building.
Exactly.
Everyone else with the means to evacuate has left. But if that local church abandons the neighborhood, the roof caves in entirely. The community starves. The 12-year-olds all get recruited by the gangs.
The Haitian church refuses to look away. They are literally embodying the mandate of Psalm 82, verse 3. Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. They are offering a faithful presence in communities that the rest of the world has normalized and, frankly, ignored due to media fatigue. They're distributing whatever food they can find, offering their physical buildings as shelters for the displaced, and literally fighting gang leaders for the souls of those children.
That is just incredible, and that brings this entire deep dive directly to you, the listener.
Yes, it does.
We have examined the social fortress of the Brahmin, the digital surveillance of the Chinese state, and the violent collapse of Haiti. These are massive geopolitical realities. But the entire purpose of this podcast, this deep dive, is to transition from merely being informed to actively engaging with these communities.
And the weekly preview lays out a very specific, manageable action plan for this upcoming week of prayer. It is designed to take these overwhelming global issues and distill them into focused intercession.
The challenge is straightforward. Can you commit to praying for just 9 minutes a day? That is 3 minutes dedicated to each of these 3 themes.
It's so doable.
Or, if you want a guided experience, you can open the Missions Connect app and follow along with the 5-minute pre-recorded daily prayer audio.
Right. And if you want to push beyond just the daily prayer rhythm, the weekly preview outlines several practical next steps.
Yeah, I love these bonus challenges.
You can pull up the Joshua Project website, search for a specific Brahmin subgroup, and learn their unique history to pray more specifically. You can find an Open Doors article detailing the digital persecution in China and share it with your small group.
Or you can research a verified Christian relief organization still operating on the ground in Haiti and consider making a one-time financial gift.
Exactly. It's about moving from an intellectual understanding of the facts to an obedient, prayerful response.
But before we wrap up, I want to look at the big picture. When you lay these three realities out side by side, what is the profound takeaway that ties this all together?
Well, I think you have to consider the interconnectedness of these distinct groups.
How so?
We look at them as isolated case studies, right? Separated by oceans and cultures. But think about the mechanisms we just discussed. The Chinese church has been forced by the state to develop the most sophisticated, resilient, and culturally adaptive missionary force in the world.
Yeah.
They know exactly what it means to face severe social and political consequences for their faith.
Right. They are stripped of all the institutional baggage.
Exactly. So what if those very Chinese missionaries who possess that unique cultural resilience are the exact demographic equipped by God to cross the impenetrable caste barriers and finally reach the Brahmin in India?
Oh, wow.
Or what if they are the ones who have the operational courage to arrive in Port-au-Prince and lock arms with those exhausted pastors in Haiti?
That completely reframes the map. The intense pressure we see in one part of the world isn't just a tragedy. It is the very forge creating the specific type of witness needed to break through the barriers in another part of the world.
That's it, exactly.
God is weaving the unreached, the persecuted, and the suffering together through mechanisms that, frankly, no human NGO could ever strategize.
That is the profound reality you are stepping into when you commit to this week of prayer.
We really want to encourage you to fully prepare for this coming week. Get equipped. You can download the web-based app by clicking the link in the description of this deep dive or by directly visiting assistingtoobey.com.
And remember, the app is fully available in both English and Spanish, so if you have bilingual communities or friends, make sure to share it with them.
And to stay actively connected with this ongoing global journey, be sure to follow Assisting to Obey on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Definitely.
You don't need a passport or a diplomatic visa to reach the ends of the earth this week. Become a missionary on your knees. Become a prayer missionary.
I love that.
Blessing the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience.
Blessing the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience.
So, you want a faith that actually matters, right? You want to make a difference in the world, to see the gospel changing lives, to know that your walk with God and His Word is impacting more than just your own life. Yeah, you want your life to count for the nations. But here's the thing. You're busy, maybe overwhelmed. You're pulled in 20 different directions. And even though you want to engage in missions and the Great Commission, you don't always know what to pray for, what's happening globally, or what your next step should be. The desire to obey is there, but the pathway isn't always clear. Let the Missions Connect app show you the way. Every day, you'll get a missions-focused devotional with a simple, practical action step and an option to share with the